Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. And you know, if you've been watching throughout the week, that Wake Up Call is down in our second home of the great state of Florida. That's why you see the palm trees and the beach behind me. And you may be saying, Dan, why am I not seeing the real palm trees? Well, that's because it's hot outside. And if I bring this computer outside and you see those palm trees, my computer will also shut off. So we are doing it this way to show you that we are down in our second home of the great state of Florida. Those of you that know me know that I spent time down here on what was ESPN 1080 The Team at the time, and of course worked at Walt Disney World simultaneously. And from there, I met a lot of wonderful people. We started a fantasy football league, and I told those wonderful people that I would always be by their side, and if they would be by mine, they would see that I'm not going anywhere. And tonight, we're having dinner together, and our fantasy football league, I believe, is in its 14th year. They still support what I do and support my business, so I cannot thank them enough. I want to give a shout out to Nicholas, as well as Rick, Jason, to Eric and his children, to Mark and Stefan, to Joey, and so on and so forth. So much love. Tim Baum, who I appreciate so very much down here. Lyle, thank you to everybody who has been so connected and has kept their word. It means the world to me. So very excited to be back in our second home of Florida. And I said it was my second home, second hub of my company. I had said that for years upon years, and now other people say it before I can even say it. And that to me is a gift from God. So happy to be here in our second home doing 3 shows while we're down here. Super Powered Pop, which is our entertainment show. Do Diz with Dan, which you've already seen a bunch of installments of that. We did our first YouTube videos, so you can check those out at Do Diz with Dan on YouTube. That's D-I-Z. And of course, we have Wake Up Call. And so this morning we're flip-flopping it because your boy, some people are like, enjoy your vacation. Sleep in, do this, do that. Well, today I didn't set an alarm. So that's the honesty of it all, which means Dave is first. And so God wanted Dave to be first. That's what it ended up being. So we're flipping the script here. We'll have Dave Paziak inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios speaking on the NBA playoffs. One of my favorite human beings to talk with about really anything. We talk about sports and life, but he has been so good to me, so awesome that Dave's one of those guys that when he's not in the room, you sing his praises, and when he is in the room, you do the same thing. So the annoying moment of the week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt. We'll get into that after Dave's on the show, and then we'll jump into Chick-fil-A Cicero's lead here on the broadcast. And the topic for lead today is, what is faith without patience? And then we'll get into the top dog of the week to round out the show. Like I said, we are inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, so we appreciate you being here on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com, internet streaming radio all over the world. We're up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around this beautiful globe. So wherever you are, we thank you for being with us. And I thank this man for being with me in what I get to call DT and DP, Dave Paziak, longtime basketball coach and analyst. And we're talking about the 2024-25 NBA playoffs. The Thunder locked it up in the West and made quick work of that. And on the other side of it last night, the Knicks said, we ain't going nowhere. So that series is now 3-2. Mr. Paziak, how are we doing?
Doing great, Dan. I thought the alarm thing was the annoying moment of the week.
I knew that you were going to say that. I really did. I was like, I know he's going to go there. But, Dave, you would think the alarm would be the annoying moment of the week, but there was a gentleman at the pool of where I am currently staying, and all I'm going to say to you is just wait for what comes out of my mouth about that situation. And I don't know why I called him a gentleman. That was very kind of me. But, there's an annoying moment of the week that pretty much wrote itself a few days ago. And so my mom was there, and I told her, I said, listen, sometimes the show just writes itself. So we'll have a lot of fun with that coming up. But Dave is here with me this morning. Dave, I want to start in the West. The Oklahoma City Thunder, here's the interesting thing is years ago, they had what some would consider the makings of a dream team. They had Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and James Harden. Yet, they didn't win a championship with that team. We didn't see that team really work. And James Harden was moved off of that team and Durant and Westbrook were together for a long time. But it's just interesting when we talk about these super teams, these mega teams that were being built over time, that one of those teams just happened on the Oklahoma City Thunder, but it did not turn into anything. And now we're seeing this Oklahoma City Thunder team years later, none of those players, and yet they almost swept the Minnesota Timberwolves. They won the series 4-1. And so I'd love to start there with what your thoughts are on Oklahoma City and the fact that they had the big three, quote unquote, back then, and it didn't turn into a team that is as strong as this team is right now.
Well, you know, they made one of, and their front office has done a really good job, a couple different iterations of, um, building through the draft, putting the right pieces together, um, so forth, so on. And, they did that with the Durant, Westbrook, Harden iteration, but they made a colossal error in judgment, um, because of the salary cap implications and whatnot. Um, at some point, you got to pay those guys. So they were in a position where they had to make a choice between Harden and Serge Ibaka, and they obviously made the wrong decision. They got rid of Harden, who ended up becoming an NBA or MVP caliber player, and Ibaka was a nice player, but certainly not on that same level. So, um, they. I think they kind of paid the price for that decision from then on because they had to pay, they paid Ibaka, and then obviously they had to pay Durant and Westbrook, and it didn't give them maneuverability to improve the team around that. So they're kind of and this year's team kind of parallels that a little bit. They got the MVP and Gilgeous-Alexander, but they've got some young talent like Williams and Holmgren and whatnot that right now they've got them comparatively cheaply, but the time has come where they're going to have to make some decisions on who to pay and whatnot, and especially now with um, the two aprons in the collective bargaining agreement and the salary cap and everything. The NBA teams have some hard choices to make when it comes time to pay the guys that are on rookie contracts.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, they just made good decisions back then in the draft, and then ultimately made a decision that ended up taking this team apart. And I remember when James Harden came into the league. He was at Summer League in Orlando, down here in Florida, and I got to watch him. And here's a top 5 pick guy, and I remember looking at James Harden at the time, and he dribbled the ball off his foot, and it like just rolled out of bounds. And I remember watching him in Summer League and going like, why are people so high on this guy? Like my initial thoughts of him in the NBA were not that he was all cracked up to what the hype was. And then you see what he's become over the years. And I always call him basketball's Kanye because he's like an interesting person and he has an interesting kind of way about things. And he also has that when Kanye's grown the facial hair, it looks a little similar. But Harden, when you tell people that Harden was on that team, they don't believe you. And they're like, wait a minute, they had that team together? And you're like, yeah. And then Westbrook, when Westbrook and Durant were first together, there wasn't the notion, at least for me, that Westbrook was, the ball hog, Westbrook, it's all about him. And remember, Kevin Durant came over when the franchise left Seattle because they were the Seattle Supersonics and they became the Oklahoma City Thunder. When they came to Oklahoma City, they were the worst team in the NBA. So, it's this long history of Seattle, which then became Oklahoma City, and what all of this looked like. And keep in mind that Oklahoma City had the Hornets for some time because the Hornets had to leave New Orleans after they left Charlotte. They had to leave New Orleans because of the hurricane. And so amidst all of this, it's like Oklahoma City showed that they could field the team and that they could take care of having a franchise, which ultimately gave them the Thunder when Seattle moved. So, I mean, we're talking about a long road, a winding road of the Thunder franchise that used to be the Supersonics and the city of Oklahoma City that did not have a team. And by assisting and helping in a time of natural disaster, Oklahoma City showed that they should have a franchise. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that, Dave, because when you actually look at how this all came to be, it's Oklahoma stepping up for the Hornets at a time of need, and then the Supersonics franchise just being in a really bad place.
Yeah, I think one of the things that OKC has shown, it's one of the smallest markets of a major professional sports team in the NBA or in any of the major leagues. But I think they've shown that you can with great community support, good ownership, good management, and good front office decisions, you can get your team um, to the level where they can compete for a championship. And the similarities between this iteration and the Durant Westbrook Harden iteration are really eerie. Like, you talked about they were the worst team in the league, when they came from Seattle and everything and built it into an NBA finalist. And kind of done the same thing this go round. It's not that long ago that they were the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
And they've steadily built over the last 5 years or so. And um, got to the point where this year they had, historically great season for the franchise. So, um, on the surface, you would think this is they've got some durability and some staying power because of their depth and they're the youngest team in the league. And it's hard to believe they're the best team in the league over the course of the regular season and have looked like the best team in the playoffs. And yet they're the youngest roster in the NBA. So, um, a lot of credit goes to, like I said, the front office made a colossal mistake with opting for Ibaka over Harden. But on balance, since they've come from Seattle to OKC, you got to give the organization, the front office, and the Oklahoma City, the city and the community, a ton of support for what they've been able to do there.
Yeah, and it's been incredible. And like you said, the MVP resides in Oklahoma City, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, coming out of Kentucky in the 2018 NBA draft, he was the 11th pick in the first round. And here's the thing that's even more crazy to put it all together: he was picked by Charlotte. So the Charlotte Hornets become the New Orleans Hornets, and then they become Oklahoma City during all this stuff going on with the hurricane. And yet, so you look at that, and then Charlotte got the Bobcats, and now they're the Hornets again, and the New Orleans team is now the Pelicans. But amidst all of this, and we're talking about the connection between Charlotte and Oklahoma City, and here's the connection between Charlotte and Oklahoma City, and you talk about bad decisions. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander could have been a Hornet, and right now, and we're seeing him instead be a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder and be the MVP of the league. So just what you could say about his journey to Oklahoma City and what you think about the fact that he is the most valuable player by the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's another, I don't know, another example of, your draft position doesn't necessarily dictate, your destiny in the NBA. I
Yeah.
mean, you look at, Gilgeous-Alexander, I think he said he was picked 11th and, um, started off in Charlotte, obviously got moved to a much better situation for him. Doubtful that he'd be the MVP of the league if he was still in Charlotte. Um, so moved into a great situation for him. And at the same time, his game has continued to evolve and improve. And, um, he's established himself as one of the premier players in the world right now.
Yeah. No, he's been at the top of it. And here's the thing, Dave. So when you look at this current situation in the NBA, and you look at the fact that the Timberwolves gave little to no pushback to the Oklahoma City Thunder in a series where they lost 4-1 in 5 games in what could have been a best of 7, but the Thunder only needed 5. Where is Oklahoma City right now, in your opinion? Is Minnesota a team that just, I mean, essentially, did Minnesota come into the best team in the league? Did they come into a buzzsaw? Or did Minnesota underperform, in your opinion?
Um, in terms of Minnesota, it's a tough call because on the one hand, you look at it, 6 seed, they beat the Lakers, they beat the Warriors. Two marquee franchises get to the conference finals second year in a row. Um, they made the big move in the offseason, sending Towns to the Knicks. Um, read a really interesting column a couple days ago about, in hindsight, was, ever said like that was a win-win deal with Randall going to Minnesota, Towns, the Knicks, win-win deal. But then if you take a look at it from the other, kind of coming from the other direction, if the Knicks end up not getting past the Pacers, getting bounced in the conference finals, so now, are Minnesota and New York really any better off after after making that deal, which, at first and on the surface looked like a win for both teams. But Minnesota's going to have some. We talked about how, at some point you got to make some decisions. Minnesota's going to have some roster decisions to make in this offseason about, whether an incremental move, whether they can make a couple incremental moves and get over the hump and get to the OKC level, or whether they have to do something a little bit more drastic.
And again, we talk about small world and how these things happen. The Karl Anthony Towns deal involved the Knicks, involved the Timberwolves, and also involved the Charlotte Hornets. So, my question to you, Mr. Pasiak, is Charlotte just making a lot of bad decisions lately? Because they seem to be a part of things that are not giving them the things that they need. I mean, obviously, Charlotte's not a playoff team, but we're looking at this blockbuster deal. The Knicks got Karl Anthony Towns, and they got some draft rights there. Minnesota received Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, Keith Bates Diop, as well as a 2025 top 13 protected first round pick from the Pistons. And then the Hornets received Juwan Jeffries, as well as Charlie Brown Jr., Dwayne Washington Jr., and they received a bunch of picks here in 2026 and 2031 is what we're looking at. So, and they got a second round pick in 2025 as well. So we talk about Oklahoma City and their connection to Charlotte, and now we see Oklahoma City gets a franchise. They're in the NBA Finals. We talk about the side of it when we're discussing Minnesota and Minnesota making a deal where they trade Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks, who are still alive, and that deal involved the Charlotte Hornets, the other team that had to be involved. And then we also discussed the fact that Charlotte gave up their franchise of the actual Hornets are now the New Orleans Pelicans when you look at that history, and then they became the Hornets again. So if Charlotte is involved with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and they don't have him, they're involved in the Karl Anthony Towns trade and Julius Randle trade, but they don't have anything that came from that of either of those gentlemen. Are we talking about a franchise that seems to be involved in places where they are not excelling or making the decisions that need to be made so that they can be a playoff team?
Yeah. If you really want to go back in history, I believe the Hornets were the franchise that drafted Kobe and traded him to the Lakers. But
Very much. No, you're very 100% correct. I
yeah,
do remember that. So,
yeah, but I think like the Hornets are, they're in a spot right now, and then you cap that off, they got a bad break with the lottery, right? I mean, the Hornets fell out of the top, out of the top three picks, top four picks. Um, on the surface, they get, if things fall their way and they get Cooper Flag, it changes the whole trajectory of the franchise. You pair him up with Ball, and now you see like a light at the end of the tunnel. But right now, they're kind of in a position where they're trying to stockpile draft picks, and then they become a dumping ground for teams to offload contracts to make salaries match, in the trade world, which, the capologists in the NBA that have to figure all those things out. They become kind of your most valuable front office person sometimes. So, when you're in a position that Charlotte's in, where they really don't have a roster that is equipped to compete, then that ends up being their MO. Stockpile some assets, become the trading partner, trying to facilitate teams or trades between contending teams, and hopefully you can turn those assets into either strike gold with the draft, or if flip those assets for one or two impact players and decide you're going to try to um, really take a quantum leap and elevate your franchise into contendership. I think Charlotte right now, like, I don't see them flipping the picks or trying to flip assets necessarily, because they got to make a lot of moves to get from where they are to contender. And the worst thing you want to do is kind of go halfway in the water and then get stuck in NBA purgatory, where you're battling for the play-in every year, and you're not. I mean, you're unlikely to get a high draft pick, even though things fell the Mavs way this year. and yet you're not good enough to contend with the upper echelon teams either. So,
Yeah, and you talked about my Raptors in that a few years back. They kept some assets, they got rid of others, and after winning that championship, they were a playoff team, but they weren't a playoff team that got anywhere. So it was, what are you going to do from here? Which way are you going to lean? But it's just interesting that the Charlotte Hornets seem to be a part of a lot of names here, and Carl Anthony Towns, that trade that they were involved with, obviously they didn't have him, but being that third partner in the deal, he's still playing. And Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, he's the MVP and he's still playing. So it's just interesting. And like you mentioned, Kobe Bryant, not only did he play into the playoffs, but he is a multi-time, five-time champion. So, there's a lot of moves that have that Charlotte franchise connected to it in some way, shape, or form, but not for the good of Charlotte, who ended this season the second to last team in the Eastern Conference, the only team that was worse, the Washington Wizards, 18 wins in 82 games. The Charlotte Hornets had 19 wins in 82 games, and that's how things ended up for them. So we'll see what they do with these picks in 2025, 26, 2031, and how they end up building this team back. They do have the fourth overall pick. Is there someone, before we get back to the postseason, Dave, is there someone in the 2025 NBA draft at the fourth overall pick that you think can change a franchise? Is there somebody there for them?
there's not an obvious guy.
Okay.
This draft is like flag and in the guard from Rutgers, and then it seems like, not a lot of consensus after that. Maybe Bailey. Um, so I think that, um, one and two are locked in. And the other thing, a team like Charlotte, it depends on what my Sixers are going to do at three. There's been chatter about moving that pick, or, do they use that pick on Bailey, or where does Philly go with three? I think that, kind of is going to drive what happens with Charlotte. So according to the draft pundits, it's flagged and drawing a
Dylan
name escaped
Harper.
me, the guard from Rutgers.
Dylan Harper.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And then everybody else. So I think after you get past two, it's a little bit of a crapshoot of where guys land and who ultimately ends up emerging that bust. So I think jury's out on that as far as Charlotte goes. I don't think there's a clear-cut franchise-changing player versus if the balls fell their way and they got flagged, then obviously that changes their franchise significantly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this is going to be definitely interesting, especially seeing when you look at a bunch of different mock drafts I've looked at here, and they have two Rutgers players going in the top three with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, their forward as well, saying that if the Sixers stay there, that the Sixers will take a guy from Rutgers, obviously not too far away from where the Sixers play their games, from Philadelphia to that New Jersey area. But to get back into the NBA playoffs and to get to the other side, the Knicks last night at home in the Garden, in front of Spike Lee and the crew, were able to keep their season alive. They were down 3-1 in this series with the Pacers, and they found a way. And last night they put the work in. You see them in the first half of the game giving themselves a cushion, in the third quarter giving themselves a 20-point lead, and then with it was like a minute 4, minute 6 left, they're up by 18, and then in the fourth quarter they had enough of a margin that anything that Indiana was trying to do, the Knicks had already taken a hold of this game. So game 5 goes to the Knicks. The Knicks have now made it 3-2, and we'll see what the Knicks can do here if they could push a game 7. Do you think that there is true life in this, or do you think Indiana was like, yeah, you know what, we'll lose this game and then we'll just take care of you at home?
I think there's a little of both. Knicks get off to a good start, so psychologically for the Pacers, we still got them coming to our place. So obviously there was a lot more urgency on the Knicks part than there was on the Pacers part last night. And you see that in playoffs. Back and win this series, the Pacers are going to look back at blowing the 20-point lead in game 3 as, they could have really put their thumb on the Knicks. Series pretty much over at 3-0. and they let the Knicks off the hook a little bit. And then the one thing I have the Knicks credit about too is in game one and game two, they looked like a really tired team at the end of the game. And Thibodeau was only playing seven guys, and he still hates to go past seven on the bench. And um, I think the Knicks with the series in the every other day, only one day off in between mode, um, you really thought that was going to favor the Pacers because of the pace they play with and the fact that they're deeper than the Knicks. Um, you felt like the longer the series went, it was going to favor the Pacers. The Knicks have done a couple things. They changed up the lineup and they're playing a couple more guys, partly out of necessity because of foul trouble, and partly because I think they finally have recognized that they needed to open up the rotation a little bit. Um, so they were like played with really great energy, the last couple of games, especially last night. So, which is one thing that I thought might not happen with this as the series progressed. The other thing that happened last night is really the first time in the series that Brunson has been better than Halliburton. Like through the first four games, Brunson's been good, but Halliburton's been better. So, and I think the Knicks need Brunson to be star level Brunson more than the Pacers need Halliburton to be star level Halliburton. Um, so I think how that matchup plays out for the rest of the series will go a long way towards determining who advanced to the finals.
Yeah, and you made the statement here in the Eastern Conference Finals that it has been closely contested, despite the fact that the Pacers came into last night's game up 3-1. In Game One, the Pacers and the Knicks went to overtime, and the Pacers won by one possession, 138 to 135. In Game Two, the Pacers won by two possessions, and that being 114 to 109, 5 points in that game. In Game Three, they won by the Knicks won by two possessions, 106 to 100 against the Pacers, and then the Pacers won Game Four by 9 points. So that was the first one in four games where it wasn't a two possession or less game, winning that game 130 to 121, and then the Knicks last night winning Game 5 111 to 94 was the biggest margin of victory in the entire series that they've had so far against each other in this 2024 25 NBA playoffs, with the Knicks winning by almost 20 points, taking a 17-point victory at home. So when you go back and you look at this, and you look at those first couple games, Dave, where the Pacers outlasted the Knicks, won in overtime and then won by 5 points in Game 1 and Game 2, what did that show you? Did that make you think, I know you said he doesn't have to be Halliburton as much as Brunson has to be Brunson in order for the Knicks to move on, but when you look back at kind of the crazy finish of Game 1, and you and I texted about this, one of the craziest finishes that we've seen, maybe the craziest that people have seen, but when you see that, and you see the Pacers take Game 1 and take that momentum into Game 2, and then they take Game 2 away from the Knicks, were you in that moment saying the Pacers just truly are better? They can pick apart the Knicks defense more? Did you see something in Indiana? Because Game 1 to some people might have been like, okay, well, that's a crazy finish and the ball bounced your way and good for you. But after the first couple games, were you thinking, the Knicks don't have answers for the Indiana Pacers? Where were you at after Game 1 and 2?
Well, there were times where they didn't have answers. Like on the one hand, we talked about like if the Knicks win the series, the Pacers are going to look back on Game 3. But if the Pacers win the series, the Knicks are going to look back on Game 1 as one that they gave away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I even when it was 3-1, after games 1 and 2, I kind of thought that Indiana really needed to go home and sweep. All right. Because I felt like after game 1 and 2, like the Pacers made plays at the end and were the fresher team at the end. That's where the series has surprised me. I thought as the series went on, it would become more and more apparent Indiana would be more and more the fresher team. And it kind of hasn't played out that way. The Knicks have kind of found their second wind and, what we just talked about. I think once the Knicks won game 3, now it kind of felt to me like whatever, regardless of what happened in game 4, this could be a 6, 7 game series. Just because I don't think there's a ton of separation between these two teams. And, um, there's so much, I mean, foul trouble, huge impact, especially, in the case of the Knicks. Um, if there's Towns played last night. If Towns, he was questionable right up till game time. If there's an injury to one of the key players, that swings the series. So I'm not surprised that it's been closely contested. I thought it would be, like we talked about, last time before the series started. I think Indiana is the better team, but I don't think it's a huge gap like it was in the West with OKC.
Yeah, and when we look back on this game, the Knicks were up with 8:44 left to go in the fourth quarter. The Knicks were up by 9. They were up, and they actually, pardon me here, they were up by 12 and got up by 14. They were up 106-92 and then 108-92. There was a long gap of the Pacers not scoring during that fourth quarter of the first game, of game one in New York in the Garden. And so you look back on this, and the score was 108-92 after a two-pointer by OG Anunoby, former Raptor. 108-92 with 7:24 to play. The Knicks were up by 16. And Halliburton's shot that dropped, you see at the end of the game, Halliburton having his hands around his throat, showing that the Knicks choked. Bring me into game one a little bit deeper, Dave. The Knicks up by 16 with less than 8 minutes to play, and they lose in overtime by 3.
Yeah, I think it was 14 under 3 minutes and nine with under a minute. And the thing is, if you go back and watch that, the Knicks, I mean, the Pacers shot the ball incredibly coming down the stretch. So credit to them there. But the Knicks also did a lot to give that away and probably should have lost the game in regulation. Not just Halliburton shot at the end, but there were two plays, in the final minute or so where the Knicks had a near turnover that really bounced the ball. Ball bounces just a hair different. Those are two additional turnovers, and Pacers probably win that game in regulation. So it was really like a meltdown on the Knicks part. Um, and when overtime came around, like the Knicks had nothing left. So um, I think that really fueled the Pacers. Although Indiana's been great on the road. Last night's the first road game they've lost in the playoffs. So the fact that they won two in New York is not super surprising, but the way the Knicks melted down in game one, um, that could have it kind of set the tone for the series, but the Knicks were able to reset that to a certain extent with their game three win.
Yeah, I mean, in the Pacers, when I'm talking about what that score was with over 7 minutes to play, from 10:05 mark of the fourth quarter to the 7:18 mark of the fourth quarter, almost 3 straight minutes the Pacers went without a single point. So I mean, there's something else there, and like you said, they shot the ball well down the stretch. But I mean, you've been a coach for a long time, Dave. When you see a team melt down like that, is that resting in the laurels? I mean, I know you're not physically with them on the sideline, but you're watching from a coach's point of view. Is that resting in the laurels of thinking we got the game? We're up by almost 20 points. Is that a little bit of coasting? Is it bad shots? Is it lax defense? Is it fatigue? What was it, in your opinion?
Watching the game, I thought it was a lot of fatigue and a little bit of playing not to lose. Um, but I thought fatigue really played a factor in that game. Um, the other thing with the Knicks is like coming down the stretch in games, they lean heavily on, the one game they leaned on Towns, but for the most part, they lean on Brunson really heavily. Brunson, we were talking earlier about SGA and Harden. Brunson's kind of the same way. He's kind of cracked the code as far as getting to the foul line and drawing fouls and that kind of thing. So the Knicks lean heavily on him. And if you can manage to contest him heavily or take the ball out of his hands a little bit, he won't give it up. He doesn't want to give it up at the end of the game. So, they were, like I said, I thought they were fatigued at the end of game one, and the shots they were getting were not necessarily great versus, the whole key with the Pacers, if they get out in transition, um, they're really tough for the Knicks to deal with. And part of that comes from, are the Knicks scoring on the offensive end? And that's giving them a little better chance to set their defense. Um, During that stretch that you talked about where the Pacers aren't scoring, um, the Knicks at times in this series have done a pretty good job of keeping them out of transition. And I think that was one of those periods. When Indiana gets into transition, they and the pace they play at, that is a real problem for the Knicks. So, their ability to keep Indiana out of transition, I think, has been a differentiating point through the first 5 games, and it really is going to be one of the keys to who emerges from Game 6 and potentially Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, if the Knicks don't melt down in game one, is this a totally different series if the Knicks take game one in the Garden?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Now the Knicks, I think that had the Knicks hung on in game one, I think the Pacers probably still would have come out of there feeling pretty confident by the way they closed the game and competed. Um, so now, I mean, but without question, it changes the whole tenor of the series because now the worst thing that happens, from a Nick perspective is, they're 1-1 and the Pacers have not, it's a weird phenomenon. The Pacers have not been as good at home as they have been on the road these playoffs. So, if you, from a Nick perspective, you win game one, you're taking the momentum into game two. Even if game two doesn't go your way, you have to feel fairly confident about being able to get a split at least um, out of Indiana, and then they're coming home to the Garden, at worst 2-2. So, and then obviously if last night went the way it did, you're up 3-2 and with a chance to close it out. So, definitely changed the tenor of the series. Put the Pacers in control and kind of put the Knicks in desperation mode right from game two on.
Yeah, and now we'll see what they can do. The Pacers will be hosting the Knicks for game six, and that game is going to be May 31st, last day of May, this Saturday, and that'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on TNT and True TV as well. I want to go back to something that, before I let you go, Dave, Charles Barkley is one of the impressions that I do. And he just has that interesting voice. Now, he says whatever he wants to say. And there's a quote that people have come to know, I would think, because you see the video all over the place. But, he says a lot of things about San Antonio and, how he doesn't like the things in San Antonio and Phoenix and whatnot. But he had made some thoughts about New York. And he talked about, that the people are conceited, that they're snobby. And Shaq continued to egg him on as Shaq does. And, Shaq's got that, like, that big, the big, like, sleeping baby voice. And what else, Chuck? And he's like, so he's, giving him all that. And Chuck's like, he just keeps going and he keeps going. He's like, the people are stuck up. And he just keeps going, with everything that he's saying about it. And he's like, what else, Chuck? And then he keeps going and gets to the street meat. And Charles Barkley always has something random to say. And when he talked about the street meat in New York, he said, could be cat, could be dog, could be rat. He's like, just put that white sauce on it. But when you look at the inside the NBA side of things, and we know that this team has been together for a long time with Ernie and Kenny and Shaq and Charles, do you enjoy it? And are you sad about the fact that there's a little swan song going on in the background of the NBA playoffs?
Yeah, it's really sad. I think it's the greatest studio show in the history of sports. It's just they have they found magic with the four of them. I
Yeah.
think if you take any one of those four guys off that set, the show is not the same. So I mean, it's sad that TNT, Turner lost the rights to the NBA, and they're licensing the show to, I believe, ESPN. But I got a suspicion, when they're in the ESPN, ABC, Disney universe, they may not have the freedom to kind of say what they say and do what they do. And I think that's been one of the really great things about the inside the NBA crew is that they'll they're not afraid to be critical of the league, of the players, of the coaches, of what's going on in the world. Um, you know, I think often you see the studio shows, and to a certain extent, they're shills for the league, and that's certainly not been the case with with the Turner Crew and inside the NBA. So, yeah, you know, whenever this series ends and those guys sign off, it's going to be a sad day, for the league because I think that if you compare their studio show to what ABC and ESPN have put out for the last I don't know how many years, I mean it's not even in the same conversation. Like the ABC ESPN studio shows like are not have not been good at all in my opinion. And Tina Turner has caught up as far as the in-game crews too. Like Harlan, I think is and they had Marv Albert for a long time, and um, you know the ABC ESPN. I thought when they had Breen and Jackson and Van Gundy together, I thought they on the play-by-play side um, surpassed what Turner was doing with whoever they ran out there. But since that crew broke up, like I think Doris Burke is awful, and I think that Breen is still good, but I don't think he plays off um, Doris Burke and Jefferson or whoever nearly as well as when they had Van Gundy and they had Jackson together. So. Um, It'll be interesting to see how the inside the NBA stuff translates, when they start franchise or contracting that out to ESPN and see if the show has the same teeth that it has had.
Yeah, there's a lot of PC on the side of Disney, and that don't fit Charles. So, but I would say that I mean I told people I said sometimes I could care less about the NBA game. I just wanted to see how they talk to each other. And there was a game, it was like last year or the year before, where they were sitting on a really, I mean, you know how big Shaq and Charles are, and they were sitting on like a tiny set. And it was right there, they're off the court and they're sitting there after a game and they're talking. They got players coming up and whatnot, and they started fighting with each other. And Shaq won't look at them when he's fighting with him. So he's looking right into the camera. He's like, "Say one more thing, and say one more thing. I'm gonna come over there and I'm gonna beat your ass." And then there's Charles on the other side going, "Come on, man. Just he's like, what? You don't want to get on a couch and sit? Come here. I'll give you a hug." And like so, there's just like there's something about how they are. They're like best friends. Then they sound like they hate each other. But there's a comedy to it. There's a realness to it. There's a no script to it. And unfortunately, I think a lot of Disney things feel scripted. And I'm sad. I'm sad for that because I feel like ESPN and ABC, they've gotten so many things and they own so many things. And when there's a monopoly of sorts, right, you don't necessarily get to see everything kind of breathe and what that could become. And in the case of what Turner has done with Inside the NBA, it's been incredible. And seeing how they were when it comes to college basketball, seeing how, because obviously we've seen Charles in that world as well, but there's certain things that just need be left alone. And this was one of those things, Dave, that I'm going to miss for sure. And I'm just kind of sad. I don't want it to end. And there's, like I said, there's times where I'd rather watch them than watch the game. So, I hope this continues. I hope we get a game 7. I hope we head back to New York, and I hope we have some fun with it. But it's definitely been very unique to see these very well-known names, these all-stars, have a place there. And Ernie tries to be the ringleader. He tries to control the circus, and it doesn't always work. And there's moments where Ernie gets involved in this thing and he has his own personality and his own style. And I think he's an unsung hero of this because he keeps it going. And I think Kenny as well, for what he does, the whole group has just been phenomenal. So I would suggest to people that if you don't know what we're talking about, go to any video source out there, YouTube, whatever, and just watch clips. Instagram has a bunch of clips too, and you'll have some fun with it. But Dave, hoping for a game 7 after this game 6, and hoping that it continues to be more fun here, my question to you before we hop out, whoever wins the series, are they any threat to Oklahoma City?
Doubtful. I think Indiana can give the OKC a better series than the Knicks would.
Okay.
I think if it ends up being Knicks OKC, I think that's going to be a short series. OKC in four, maybe five, maybe the Knicks get one at home. Um, I think OKC is, it still would beat the Pacers, but I think that would be one, it would be a more entertaining series just because I think from just a basketball standpoint without having any rooting interest, I think, Indiana with the pace and the flow that they play with on offense, um, more of an entertaining watch than the Knicks, who, like we talked about, end up being, Brunson in the screen and roll, Brunson going one-on-one, every possession at the end of games. So I think from a basketball standpoint, if you don't have a rooting interest, I think the Pacers would be a more fun series to watch and probably a more competitive series to watch because I think they can match up with OKC's depth a little bit better than the Knicks can. But if it ends up Knicks and OKC, I think 4 or 5 game series. I think if it's the Pacers, they might be able to extend it out to maybe six. But OKC to me has been the best team in the league all year. They've been the best team in the playoffs, and um, I think it would be a substantial surprise if either the Knicks or the Pacers were able to knock them off in the championship.
Big words coming from Dave Paziak here about OKC and his thoughts on their chance at a first championship. So with that being said, Mr. Paziak, I appreciate you as always. I know that you know and I know that I will keep you close as always and have you ready for whatever happens as we step into our second week in the great state of Florida. But always happy to do this with you. Appreciate you so very much and never know how to say goodbye because the friendship means a lot to me. So I'll say see you soon. And I hope you enjoy your day today. DT and DP is here with you on Wake Up Call throughout the playoffs and beyond. And, of course, we'll be talking about the draft when that rolls around as well in June. But always happy to talk with you, Dave, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, great to talk with you too, Dan. And just remember, inside the NBA is leaving, but round ball rock's coming back. Um, so not all is lost. So look forward to chatting again soon.
Amen. And DT and DP is here as well. And we have some things to say, but listen, I go far in my comedy. I don't go as far as Chuck, but I go places. I just don't go where Chuck's trying to get himself shot. I mean, those San Antonio women, I'm telling you right now, he better watch himself. But always good to hear from you, Dave, and always good to have a conversation, get up with you in the morning. So I look forward to doing that soon. And in the meantime, have a great weekend and God bless.
You too, Dan. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care. That coming from Dave Paziak here where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break, and we'll come back with a trio of signature segments, the Annoying Moment of the Week presented by Carvel DeWitt, LEAD, which is an acronym, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver, proudly presented by Chick-fil-A Cicero, by the grace of God, helping me create this acronym where the word means something and each of the letters of the word means something. And, of course, we'll be talking today about a new topic, and that new topic for this morning's broadcast on Wake Up Call inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios is going to be what is faith without patience? And we'll get into that from Chick-fil-A Cicero, and we'll round out the show with the top dog of the week, proudly presented by K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare right after this. All that's coming up inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios as Wake Up Call goes live from Florida, our second home. This week live, next week live as well.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the Whole Frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Here's a message from Renee from Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. Open Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sundays for brunch.
It's a lot like the way that my mom and dad ran their restaurant. We have put in place a lot of people that are family to us, very similar to how my dad hired people that were family to him. And then the tradition I'm carrying on is a lot of the items that are on our menu are my dad's. And he taught our chefs how to recreate his dishes. So I think that Tommy McNerney, who our executive chef is, to him it is an art. And I think that when he does create a dish, it's not just about making the food taste delicious, which is definitely our priority, but it's an art to him, and it's almost like his canvas on a plate where he just wants the colors to look great, and people love it because he takes pride in that. And Brian and I appreciate that. We want it to obviously look good and taste good. I will tell you, when we opened up, it was 6 weeks before COVID. And what was amazing was the community, our friends and family stepped up, and everybody did takeout. Everybody supported us. Our hearts were just so filled. So to Brian and I, obviously our friends come all the time, and we just have repeat customers in Jamesville, and I think people going to our previous restaurant in Green Lakes are making the trip to come to Bryan's Landing to support us. And I mean, I think we have great food and a great atmosphere. So it's very, very important to us.
Head to Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York, where memories have become recipes that are now meals to share with you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and on Sundays for brunch. And be sure to come out for live music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Here is a special message from Brian Bruno, owner of Servomation Refreshments Incorporated.
I grew up in the family business. I had the experience of working for a national food service company with thousands of employees. And as much as I enjoyed the experience I had, there was something about, owning my own company and being able to change the things I saw wrong with the industry firsthand, which is why I moved back to my hometown in Canastota, New York to launch Servomation. It was back in 2007. We When we first started the business in '07, really you didn't find any machines with credit card readers. There was a lack of variety in machines. You got stuck with basically whatever the vending company wanted to sell that day. There's a lot of inefficiencies in the business, and those were all things that we saw as opportunities, both from a customer level to improve and from an operating level to be more efficient. We've really been at the forefront of introducing retail technology into our space. We were doing self-checkout back in 2009 before it really became a national phenomenon. The whole point of it isn't to just improve the customer experience. It's to make it feel more like a retail environment where people don't have to be afraid of what they're buying behind glass. They don't have to be afraid of not being able to see the ingredients of the packages. It was an easy transaction from that standpoint. If we were to reinvent something, we wanted to make sure what we were making looked and felt more like a deli and not like something that you would traditionally see in a vending machine. I was tired of hearing for years the customers say the wheel of death because the vending machine would circle around with the same tuna salad in it. What we wanted to do was it really change the perception of that food. So allowing customers to touch it, allowing customers to feel the weight of it, allowing customers to see the freshness of it, and also the variety of it really helps them change the perception and ultimately the value of what we bring to them. The point of differentiation you have to make is either in value or the quality. And I think on both of those fronts, Servamation has really, in large part, changed that value system for employees. So they no longer have to worry about bringing their food from home or having to leave their desk during the day and rush out to get back in time for their break to end. We're bringing something that they can count on in their break room every day, and they know it's going to be there, they know it's going to be fresh, and they don't have to worry about it being sold out or something that they don't enjoy. We've also heavily invested in flavored water machines, so you can get a glass of water with a fresh piece of fruit in it, along with bean to cup coffee machines. So there's not a day that goes by we're not surprised when we get customers that call us and say, we didn't know you could do all this. We're really lucky to have a strong group of dedicated employees. Most of our employees have been with us since inception. They're family to us, and people like doing business with people they like and trust. And I think the same thing goes for employees. In a day and an age where there's a lot of corporations that just look at an employee as a number and don't get to know them, that's just not the way I was raised or how I like to do business. So we're a little old-fashioned. We like getting close to our employees. We like knowing how we can help them. We like knowing how we can improve their lives, adjust their schedules, whatever it may be to help improve their quality of life. And we think in the end that makes for a happier employee. We're fortunate enough to have really grown over the last several years, and from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts to Connecticut, we really do have a strong connection, even though we're not in the rooms every day with these employees. There's not one single employee that we feel like we don't know, and certainly we know they can call us at any time, and they're definitely treated as family to us. I wake up every single day really excited to surprise our customers in a good way. The one thing I can tell you is I think that every one of our employees and every one of our customers will continue to be at the forefront of every decision we make.
Find out how Servomation can help you and your business by going to servomation.com. And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. And obviously we adjusted that a little bit today and adjusting it throughout our time here down in Florida. But we are broadcasting Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from down in the Sunshine State this week and next week. We will be here in our second home where we spend a lot of time throughout the year. Of course, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora has covered and interviewed Florida State as well as Miami, UCF, South Florida, FAU, the Orlando Magic, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Tampa Bay Bucks, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Miami Dolphins, among other things like recruiting when it comes to a lot of high school football recruiting up and down the great state of Florida. And we have been connected to, broadcasted, or covered something in Tallahassee, in Winter Park, in Winter Garden, in Orlando, I'm trying to think of where else we've been all over the place. Fort Lauderdale, Davie, Miami, Jacksonville, St. Augustine. We've been all over the place. And Kissimmee, of course. So big time shout out to the Sunshine State, and much love to the warm welcome that we always get when we're down here in Florida. We have our trio of signature segments we bring you on a Friday, and we're going to jump into those inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. The first being the annoying moment of the week. This thing wrote itself just a few days ago down here in Florida.
Dan Tortora proudly brings you
Is that for real? Are you kidding me?
the annoying moment of the week.
I really honestly, I don't know how to respond to this.
Presented by Carvel DeWitt, 4322 East Genesee Street. It's what happy tastes like.
Do you have to be that crazy? I guess so.
The annoying moment of the week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt. And my annoying moment of the week for this week truly just walked right in front of me, literally. So there's a guy at the pool. So Mom and I are at the pool. We're spending some time together. Mom came down here for a few days, and, we're putting suntan lotion on off to the side, getting ready to go in the pool. And so this guy comes down. There's a woman that's at one of the chairs, right? So she's laying out on one of the chairs. And there's a guy, and let's say he's probably in his 60s. He comes down and he's got a t-shirt on and jeans. And first and foremost, and this is an annoying moment of the week in itself, whoever's pretending that they're warm when it's cold outside and that they're cold when it's warm outside, just stop. We get it, okay? We're warm-blooded creatures. You're not a different human being in the sense of like your body's 20 degrees warmer or colder. So when you're up in Syracuse and somebody goes to Walmart and it's 12 degrees outside and it's snowing flurries all over the place and they have sandals on and shorts because they're just cool like that, I'm like, yeah, okay, internally that person is more than likely freezing, I would imagine. And this guy on the opposite side of it, it's like almost 90 degrees outside and he's wearing jeans. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, you got to be sweating, just feeling gross. If I was wearing jeans down in Florida right now when it's 80-something degrees, 90 degrees, a couple days ago, 96 degrees, if I'm wearing jeans, what am I trying to prove? Because I'm going to be sweating all over the place. If I just took a shower, I'm going to have to go back to the room, take another shower. And so first and foremost, the annoying moment of the week, this guy was wearing jeans and no shorts. And that he said something about shorts, like he had shorts, but he didn't bring them, and why should he buy other ones? I'm like, probably because you wore jeans to Florida. And on top of that, the real annoying moment of the week is that this human being, because I can't call him a gentleman with what I'm about to say, so he walks up to his, I'm guessing, lady. I'm guessing they're in a relationship. She didn't look like she was really wanting to deal with him, but let's say that they were in a relationship, and he walks up. My mom and I are putting our suntan lotion on. He kind of looks over his left shoulder like, is there anybody by me? Or maybe to look to us and say, like, how close are they? And then he just rips a fart. And not one of those, it was a giant water bubble in his pants. And it made itself known to the world. It definitely hit a 1 or 2 on the Richter. And I mean, so he lets it go and it's blah, blah, and that's what you hear. And then he grabs his butt afterwards and like kind of pulls his underwear. And I looked at my mom and I was like, did that just happen? And it was loud. It was not like you could confuse it for a second. Normally when somebody passes gas in public, they want you to, they wait until the plane goes overhead so you can hear the engine of the plane and then they let it go. Or they wait until they're in the water and they let that go and they go under the water. So when the bubbles come up, people think it's you breathing underwater. No, this guy was standing there with his dirty old jeans on and then you hear it and you hear like the grossness of it. And then he grabs his butt right after. And there's no apology. There's no turnaround. There's no, oh, my bad. Oh, that's louder than I thought it was. There's no giggle. There's no like, okay, that was a childish moment for an adult male. But nothing. And then as you heard him talk, you're like, oh, I don't know if this guy genuinely cares about anybody or their thoughts or opinions. So he kind of let that personality be known by the way that he passed gas at the pool, but then he let you know even more by kind of just listening to how he was speaking in general. But yeah, that's the annoying moment of the week. And I looked at my mom and I said, sometimes it just writes itself. And that was such an easy one for me to sit there and say, yeah, this is clearly the annoying moment of the week. A guy who farts that loud in public, doesn't care, and then grabs his butt to move his underwear. Disgusting. So congratulations, sir. You are my annoying moment of the week. So yeah, that's what you get for that. And for wearing jeans. And there's another guy that came down to the pool with a sweatshirt and pajamas, and he kind of looked like he was sleepwalking. I'm like, okay, maybe he's delirious. Maybe he had a rough night. And then I saw him come down again in the same clothes, and I'm like, do you know that you're in Florida? You know what I mean? Like, the thought of having jeans on or a sweatshirt on when it's 90 degrees outside, I'll sweat thinking about it. I could not wear less clothes. You know what I mean? Like, when I was at the park, the first day that I went to the park, and it's 96 degrees outside, and I was at Hollywood Studios, I'm like, I should have wore a tank top. You know, I got jerseys down here and whatnot. Then I'm thinking in my head, I should go buy some more tank tops. I don't think I have enough down here right now. And I'm wearing lightweight stuff. I'm wearing those shirts that when you sweat, you don't really see it, and it just kind of like the sweat because of the texture of the shirt. The sweat essentially kind of cools you down and goes away because the shirt kind of feels like water. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure this guy's butt and pants and jeans probably felt like water, or that he was in a waterbed after he let that bubble go. But that is my annoying moment of the week. Proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt. Wonderful. It's like, I can't. I'm not going any farther. The annoying moment of the week, proudly presented by It's like those moments where you feel like you can, and I mean, and people just know, you know, I mean, if you're on an airplane and you pass gas on an airplane and it smells as bad as what I've smelled in the past, like, you know that it smelled bad. Unless your nose isn't working, you know that it smelled bad. So when you do it a second time, at that point, you're kind of proud of it, or you don't care, or you want somebody to smell it behind you. I don't know what it is, but I mean, when you're in public and you pass gas, you know, push it into a seat cushion. Go off and fart in the bushes. You know, do something to make it unknown. And if it smells awful, then have the decency to understand that maybe you should take yourself elsewhere, possibly to a bathroom, because your body is warning you that the septic tank has a leak and it's about to blow. So just get out of people's business and get out of their atmosphere. But yeah, I mean, this dude, unless he had a small creature trying to take a breath and breathe in those jeans, that was him. And I hope that he will find a way to be a little bit kinder, but based on the way he was speaking and carrying himself, I would imagine this guy farts in public a lot. So with that being said, this is the annoying moment of the week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt, 4322 East Genesee Street in DeWitt, New York. We'll be back from the Great Lakes Honda City Studios on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora right after this.
In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
All right, you need to come out here and get yourself the Brooklyn Pickle. I was talking about this with one of my buddies. I was like, yo, there's no better sandwich in the state of New York than the Brooklyn Pickle. And now that I found out that they're going down to North Carolina, We are taking over your taste buds everywhere you are, wherever you're gonna be. You need to get yourself out to the Brooklyn Pickle. Pinehurst, you just realized that you found yourself the best sandwich shop that you're ever gonna have. This is a glorious moment. It's a blessing to your community. You're welcome. Brooklyn in the house, baby. Go over to the Brooklyn Pickle. You already know what it is.
You heard the man. Head to Brooklyn Pickle Pinehurst on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there, and of course you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to K-9 Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see K-9 Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call K-9 Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9Campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9Campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to K-9 Campground.
Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks coming to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York is your one-stop sports card and trading card shop. You will find them open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6 and on Sundays from 10 to 5. Head over to GG Cards and Breaks today for soccer, hockey, basketball, football, baseball cards, as well as Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, as well as Disney Lorcana. You will find singles, packs, boxes, graded cards, and all the supplies you need to travel with your cards, showcase your cards, and to keep them safe wherever you are. So make sure that you head to GG Cards and Breaks today. It's where you get to be a big kid. It's a great place for the family. It's a great place to go with your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Great place to go with friends. And it gets you closer to the players that you love, to the teams that you love, and to the things that you love, like Pokemon and Disney and all of that, and the trading card games that you appreciate. There's truly nothing like GG Cards and Breaks. There's places that might sell sports cards or trading cards, but you can't sell being genuine, right? And you can't sell that honesty and that care. And that's just something that you either have it or you don't. And that genuineness, that care, that community, that's what I get at GG Cards and Breaks, which is why I go there all the time, and you should too. 639 Delmar Place, Syracuse, New York. And you will find them Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6 and on Sundays from 10 to 5. With that being said, here from the great state of Florida, as Wake Up Call is down in Florida this week and next week, broadcasting to you throughout these weeks, we are here in the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, and I have the opportunity of bringing you our signature segments as we continue on. You just heard the Annoying Moment of the Week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt. Now it's time to get into Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver. And this segment is proudly presented by Chick-fil-A Cicero, Jimmer Sikowski, and the team. Today's topic, what is faith without patience? This is something that I had to learn. This is something I'm continuing to learn. What is faith without patience? Well, I'll tell you, it's a whole lot of nothing. It is a whole lot of nothing. When you have faith in your life, you must have patience. They can't... You can have patience in life and not have a faith in God. I wouldn't suggest it, but you could be a patient person that doesn't believe in God. But you can't be a faithful person that's not patient. Because being faithful means that sometimes you have to wait on the Lord. And how dare us, including myself, look at God and go, yeah, you're not doing this on my time, so can you go ahead and speed this up? Thanks, it'd be great. Yeah, I've spoken to God in a disrespectful way. Because I've said to God, I don't have what I want when I want it. What are you doing? And I think I'm not the only one that's spoken to God that way. But you can't. You have to understand that anything good that happens in life comes with time. The Oklahoma City Thunder, look at how long it took to get them to a point where they're going into the NBA Finals as the favorite, potentially. It took time. They were the Seattle Supersonics. Gary Payton was finished up. Sean Kemp was finished up. Detlef Schrempf was finished up. The team was the worst franchise in the country as far as wins. Then they get Kevin Durant, and they're still not good. He's good, but as a team, they're not good. Then they move to Oklahoma City. They have Russell Westbrook, James Harden. They let Harden go. They don't win a title with the three of them. They don't win a title with Westbrook and Durant. And then none of them are on the team now. They continue to grow. They continue to try and figure it out. They go and get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Okay? They move pieces here. They move pieces there. And you fast forward to 2024-25, and They almost swept the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they're waiting for the Pacers and the Knicks, and they're going to have ample time. If the game, we know it's going to go 6, it could go 7, and they'll be sitting there getting ready because they handled their business on their end. It took time. Anything good in life takes time. Anything good. Anything worth it in life takes time. You don't become a CEO overnight with no prior anything, typically, right? So anything good in life is going to take you time. Anything. Friendships. You know, I consider Isaac a brother. When I first met him, that doesn't happen, right? 8 years ago, we talk. He seemed like a nice guy. We talked again, and we built a friendship. And that friendship turned into family. But that takes time. Being a broadcaster, having a passion for it, there's certain things about me that have always stayed the same. There's other things about me that took time to grow, took time to learn, took time to understand. There's things that bothered me back then, don't bother me anymore now. I don't let those outside influences get me like they did in the past and bring me down. There's things in romantic relationships that I've had to learn. I'm a different person today than I was a week ago. I'm a different person today than I was 5 days ago. I was worrying about things at the beginning of the week that don't matter to me anymore, that are not going to worry me and change my attitude and make me not enjoy my day. But they were at the beginning of the week. So time is something that we need. And when you talk about time, you have to also talk about patience. There's a lot of people that lack patience. And in today's society where you can get anything, you don't have to go to the library to get information. You don't have to scour the, Rolodex. You don't have to go to the basement of the Smithsonian and go through boxes and boxes of folders, right? You just have to type it on your phone. And sometimes the information you get back isn't even true, but there's information somewhere, true or not. Things are so instantaneous, right? You can date like you're buying groceries. You can date like you're on Uber Eats. I want that, I want that, I want that. I don't want that. Let's see if my shopping list comes through, right? You can do so much sitting on your butt, waiting no time, that patience, which was already a virtue back in the day and was already something you don't see in everybody, is now something that arguably you see less in society because society hasn't had to be patient. Society could just get what it needs when it needs, how it needs it. And the time has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. But if you really want to live a life of value, and you want to live a life that has substance, you have to understand that faith without patience doesn't really exist as faith. Because they say we walk by faith and not by sight, right? We can't always see what God's doing. We can't always understand what God's doing, right? There's so many verses in the Bible. When it's the right time, I, the Lord, will make it happen. Be still and know that I am God. How many times did God say, be patient, stop, I will fight for you, know who I am, be still, I will make it happen when the time is right. How many times has God in the Bible told us over and over and over again, relax, take a breath, I got this. And that's not suggesting that we don't do anything. It's not suggesting that people just sit and wait on the Lord and, God's going to give me money and God's going to give me this and God's going to give me that and I'm just going to hang out. That's not what I'm saying, and I don't believe that's what God's saying when he says wait. When he says follow me. When he says I will fight for you. I am making a path for you. I have a plan for you. I don't think God is saying don't do nothing. Just sit there. Because that's the problem with people that think they have a faith too. It's people that go around and say, well, I asked God for money, he didn't give me money, so God doesn't exist. Well, I asked God for my girlfriend and he didn't give her to me, so he doesn't exist. I asked God for a husband, and I don't have one yet, so he doesn't exist. I told God I wanted kids. It's been 3 years, so he doesn't exist. I told God that I wanted to live in this place. I don't live in this place, and my house isn't big enough, and so he doesn't exist. We hand God a grocery list, and when he doesn't check off that grocery list, well, now all of a sudden God ain't a good God, if he even is one, right? And to me, there's only one true God. So it's not even if he is one, he is, but he's the only one. And if God had answered my prayers in the past, yeah, I might have dated that pretty girl, and I might have gotten that high-paying job, and I might have gotten that desk that I wanted to be at, but then I wouldn't have owned my own business. I wouldn't be single right now and sufficient, learning about myself and growing as a human being. I don't know if I had met the right woman 6 years ago, would I have evolved to the person that I am today as much as I have? So when you look at life and you look at the fact that God is making you wait, he's preparing you. He's preparing you. And it's what are you going to do in that meantime? What are you going to do in that time of waiting, in that time of patience? God asks you to be patient, but he doesn't ask you to be lazy. And I think that that's a misconception of patience. When God says be patient, wait on me, be still, he's not telling you to sit on the couch and twiddle your thumbs and play Angry Birds. He's saying, and nothing wrong with Angry Birds, but he's saying get up, live, just understand that what you're working toward might not happen overnight. Or I might take you on a detour. I need to teach you something. I need you to get another person in your life. I need you to get... If God didn't show me how dismal the media was and how many lies go on and cheating and stealing and just constant plagiarism and disrespect and double standards, if God didn't show me the ick of the media, then I wouldn't have appreciated or saw Isaac for who he is when I met him as a member of the media, because he was different than everything that I had seen and everything I had known. I wouldn't have seen it or appreciated it as much as I did if I didn't see the ick of what the rest of the media was showing me, for the most part. Sometimes God has to let you see hell so that you know what heaven looks like. And it sucks, and it's horrible, and it's hard. But somebody who's really selfish and really conceited and really egocentric, sometimes they have to see the thunderstorm to appreciate the sun 3 hours later. Sometimes you got to get rained on to appreciate the fact that it's sunny most of the time. Because you walk outside and you expect it to be sunny and you want it to be sunny and you don't even think about it because, hey, I come outside, it's not raining, good for me, that's great. But did you thank God for the sun? When it was sunny 92 days in a row, did you thank God for it? Or did you only talk to God on the 93rd day when it rained and you said, God, how dare you? How dare you rain on me? Where's my sun? A lot of people don't ask for the sun until they don't see it. There's a lot of people that don't recognize a good thing until it becomes not a good thing or something obstructs it. I say this all the time about Syracuse when it comes to punters. Syracuse was spoiled to have really, really good punters. So people didn't pay attention. They played on their phone. They went to the bathroom. They got a beer when Syracuse's special teams unit was out there. Then Syracuse had a lot of adversity with their punting crew. And all of a sudden, people started complaining. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Okay, so you all complain about when the punters aren't punting well, but did you talk highly of the punters that were doing it well? Did you spend the last 10 years highly touting them and putting them on social media and discussing them and how much you appreciate them? No. When you had a punter that couldn't punt the ball farther than 8 yards, you lost your mind. But when you had one of the best punters in the country, you didn't say anything. Sometimes you have to lose it. Sometimes you have to see a change in it in order to appreciate what you have, right? You might be able to sleep 10 hours a night without any issue. And then all of a sudden, you can't fall asleep. And for a couple months, you're struggling to fall asleep. So now you appreciate sleep more. But how much did you thank God for the fact that you could fall asleep at 10 o'clock at night and wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and not wake up once? How many times when you were a kid did you say to God, thank you that I don't have to stretch and that my body doesn't ache in the morning? But now you complain to God that your body's aching. But how much did you appreciate when it didn't? God teaches us patience because the more we have of it, the better people that we are. And I really believe that. I had no patience. And then I realized at one point in my life that I had grown all this patience without even knowing it. And so I said, okay, now I'm finally a patient person. But I would say to you now that when I thought I was a really patient person, and I thought I had all this patience, I can tell you that what I have now in patience is different than when I thought I had 100% patience. So when I thought I had all the patience in the world, I didn't, because I've now realized that I have more now. I'm approaching God differently now. I'm approaching situations differently now. So I obviously didn't have all the patience that I needed, and He helped me to have it. So what went on in my life in the last 2 weeks to teach me patience and to teach me faith, God had to do this. He had to let this happen for me to learn faith and patience. Because I'm looking up at God going, I'm faithful, but I wasn't as faithful as I needed to be. And was I really being faithful? Was I really trusting Him? I was trusting God when things continued to progress and work. But the moment they looked like they weren't working, they weren't progressing, and they weren't making sense, my faith was gone. So God took that moment of a lapse of faith and taught me patience and faith at the same time. But you have to learn it. And I'm a firm believer that if you don't learn a lesson that God tries to teach you, He will teach you over and over and over again until you get it. If you do not get the lesson that God is trying to impart on you, He will not stop teaching you. You have to pass the class to move on. You can't just move on. You have to pass the class. And so to me, what is faith without patience? It's not faith. Faith is belief without evidence. Belief in something that's not seen, felt, touched, understood at the moment. Those who can have faith in silence have real faith. It's easy to have faith in something when it comes through for you. But do you have faith when your phone doesn't ring? Do you have faith when you don't get that text message? Do you have faith when the forecast looks like only rain? Do you have faith that God will come through when there is no factual evidence in the current situation that you're in that God is even there? When it's not working out, do you have faith? Because that's faith. People think, well, I have faith in God because I believed He was going to do it and He did it. Okay. What about when you believe God's going to do it and He doesn't do it? When He doesn't give you what you want? When you're not dating that person, when you're not getting that phone call, when you're not getting that job, when you can't book that restaurant because it's all booked. Do you believe that God has you when it's not working out? You know, there's songs out there that talk about God's best answer to me sometimes is no. God's best answer to me sometimes is no. Think about that. Really sit and think about that. God's best answer to me was no. Because I can say that. Can you say that? Can you sit here with me and can you say that? That sometimes when God says no, that's an actually really good answer. Because if God gave you everything that you perceive that you need, what would your life have been like? If God had given you that relationship, if God had given you that job, if God had listened to everything you said and said, you know what, you're smarter than I am, you're right, I'm wrong, let me fix myself to suit you. Let me change the God I am to make sure that I'm giving you what you want and what you need and how you need it and how you want it. Let me do what you want me to do. If God had listened to you every single time, where would you be right now? I would be in loveless marriages and relationships. I would not have started my business. I wouldn't be living where I'm living. I wouldn't have started my company in my hometown. If God had listened to everything that I demanded, I would not be the person I am today. I would not be as grown as I am today. I would not have learned as much as I've learned as of right now. So, what is faith? It's believing in the unknown and the unseen. What is patience? It's being calm, cool, collected, respectful, and kind to the Lord when you're not getting what you want when you want it. So be patient, be kind, be faithful. Easier said than done. But just like anything else, patience is a habit. Faith is a habit. You have to put the energy into it to sustain it. And you have to be consistent to see it grow. And I don't know about you, but I would rather be positive in the hope that I'm putting positive energy out there to get it back than be negative with the threat that I could have attracted other negative energy. They always say you get out of life what you put in. And there's good people out there that say, well, I put all this good in and I got cheated on and lied to and fired from my job and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There's been times where I've said things like that. You know, if I'm such a good person doing all these good things, why are these people hurting me the way they're hurting me? Shouldn't I get better? Shouldn't I be one of those people that has a great relationship because I'm good to people, I'm nice to people, I feel like I'm kind to people? If life is about you get out what you put in, then how come I'm seeing these people that are really terrible to people make all this money and have this and have this and have this and have this? You know, my mom and my dad tell me something all the time. And that thing that they say to me all the time is they say, Daniel, just because somebody appears to be happy doesn't mean that they are. Just because you think someone's happy or they have something that you don't have yet, it doesn't mean it's good. They might have a relationship. They might have, you know, access to this or access to that. But how do you know that this person is actually happy? And the reality of it all is it's not our job to play God. It's not our job to be God at all. So to say to God, well, why, you know, if I'm a nice person, how come I don't have this, but this person who's not a nice person, they do have it? I am a firm believer that what goes around comes around. Even when we don't see it, and we might not see it in our lifetime, in certain instances when it comes to other people, don't worry about what other people are getting or not getting. Focus on yourself and focus on doing what you need to do, right? Because at the end of the day, you have a perception of their life by what you've seen or what they've told you, but you don't know what that person's life truly is. And that's reality. You don't know what somebody's going through, and you don't know what someone's life truly is. No matter how much you don't know because you're not in there. You're not in their mind. You're not in their heart. You don't know exactly everything that's going on in that person's life. And you don't know how they're handling that. You might perceive that they have a fantastic relationship. You might perceive that things in their life are fantastic. But you have no idea how they feel about it. And if they really appreciate it. And if they really value it. You don't know that. And I've had to learn that through my life is whatever you think somebody's life is, you really don't know. The only one that you know about for real, is you. That's the only life that you really know what's going on. So when you go out here and you try to learn and you try to grow and you try to advance yourself and you try to figure things out, I'm going to tell you, be kind to yourself and be kind to others, and understand that without patience, you're not going to achieve anything in your life. Without patience, you are not going to have true faith, because God will test your faith. He might give you everything you want but one thing, because there's no one in life that God will not test. Jesus Christ himself, God's Son, was tested. The apostles were tested. The disciples were tested. People have been tested throughout history. You will not go through life without taking a test. You will not. So stop thinking that life is going to be easy and I'm going to get everything I want. You might get everything you want, but is it going to be everything you need? If you think you're smarter than God, or you think that God doesn't exist and you're your own God, you're failing. You are failing because you don't know everything. And you don't have all the answers. And you will make mistakes. And knowing that there is a loving, caring Father, being, guardian that is looking out for you and your best interest, lean into that. So when he says be still, and he says trust me, and he says have faith, do not fear, do not be afraid. He's not saying do nothing. He's saying trust me. And you know, there's people that, I was in a Bible study, and this one woman, probably in her 60s or 70s, she said, you know, I don't want to believe in the God of the Old Testament. You know, the God in the New Testament, he's so nice and he's so caring. But the God in the Old Testament, it's just, I don't think that that's my God. I think God is loving and caring. I don't see God as like this mean, evil, you know, vengeful God. And I told her, I said, he's not. And I thought the same thing that she thought in the past. But after taking that Bible study class, I said to her, I go, he's not. I said, look at the Old Testament's God. Look at God in the Old Testament. He says to people, have faith, and they don't. Be patient, and they aren't. Trust me, and they don't. Wait on me, they don't. Do not be afraid. They're scared all the time. And after 20 some odd times of saying, do not be afraid, I am with you, I will call you each by name, I love you and you are mine, and they keep doing whatever they want to do, I said, think about, God is not a vengeful God and a mean God. The God of the Old Testament, why would God have all these plagues? Why would he have a flood on the earth and have Noah and wipe away most of the earth and start all over again? Why would God look at Adam and Eve and make childbearing difficult because of Adam and Eve's sin? Why this? Why this? Why this? Why this? Why this? If you look at God in the Old Testament, he constantly tells those that believe in him to trust him over and over and over again. Trust me. Yeah, but God, you told us to stay here and our enemy is coming down the mountain. Trust me. Well, God, you told us to wait on you and we wanted to go build our city. Trust me. Well, God, you said that we would have food and water and there's nothing here. Trust me. Like any parent, God was calmer than most parents, more lenient than most parents. If you look at God in the Old Testament, he said over and over and over again, trust me. Have faith in me. And they didn't. And the first time, he didn't punish them. And the second time, he didn't punish them. And the third time, he didn't punish them. And the fourth time, he didn't punish them. And after 20 times of putting your hand in the cookie jar, God turned around and said, okay, God didn't look like a parent that wanted to slap your hand, but you forced him to. You put him in a situation where it's like, you have now gone against me so many times that I have to do something different. Telling you to not be afraid isn't working. Telling you to wait isn't working. Telling you I got you isn't working. So I don't see the vengeful God that I thought existed in the Old Testament. I see a God who is a parent who is constantly giving his children the get out of jail free card and giving them another opportunity and another and another and another until he got to a point of saying, you know what? I have to punish you in order for you to learn. I've asked you to listen to me and you won't. And over and over and over again, you do not listen to me. So I have to do something to make sure that you know who I am. Now, when you go back and read the Old Testament, you might read it differently. Because there wasn't this vengeful, hateful, angry God. There was a God who is a parent who had constantly forgiven their children for putting their hand in the cookie jar. And after 20 some odd times of doing it, as much as he didn't want to slap your hand, he did. And it's not because God wanted to slap your hand. It's because you wouldn't stop your nonsense. So the next time you say to God, why aren't you doing what I want you to do? Why aren't you giving me this? Why aren't you giving me that? Why aren't you? Why aren't you? Why aren't you? Remember, God is always working with you, working for your best interest, knows better than you do, is in rooms you're not in, all present, all knowing, all loving, all powerful. So if God is not giving you what you want right now, have the patience and the faith to believe that there is a reason, because I have lived long enough on this planet to know that every time I told God what I wanted and got mad, he has shown me today that everything he's done has worked for the greater good of the bigger picture that I could not see. Have faith, be patient, and be good to the God that does not want to smite you. The God that does not want to have to punish you. The Old Testament isn't about an angry God. The Old Testament is about a loving, caring God that exists in the New Testament and exists all throughout time. But the God in the Old Testament people perceive as evil and mean and vengeful was a parent that got to a certain point where they had told you no so many times that they had to do something to make themselves more clear because humanity wasn't listening. And that's real. Top Dog of the Week coming up next here. This has been Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver, proudly presented by the great team at Chick-fil-A Cicero, led by Jimmer Sikowski, one of my most incredible brothers. And prayers and well wishes go to him and his loved ones now and always. And a shout out to Hunter, who's out there doing his thing in the tennis world at Christian Brothers Academy. His son Hunter, his tennis continues to move forward here. Tennis was yesterday. They won the section, and they're going to be playing in state regionals today for Christian Brothers Academy. So shout out to Hunter Sikowski and the CBA tennis team that is playing in states after winning their regional here, or after winning their sectional, getting to play in states. So shout out to CBA, to Hunter Sikowski, and everybody a part of CBA tennis who can celebrate a sectional title and is looking for more with the opportunity at a state title, which continues forward with them playing in states today. So God bless to each and every single one of them, and God bless to Chick-fil-A and Chick-fil-A Cicero. What is faith without patience? It's not really faith. And I've learned that by having to go through it the hard way. And if God wasn't a parent with tough love, I would have never learned that faith cannot exist without patience. So thank you, God, for not giving me what I want so that you could teach me what I needed to be taught. With that being said, Top Dog of the Week coming to you to round out this week a wake-up call that is broadcasting live from the great state of Florida, our second home for Dan Tortora Broadcast Media, and personally, my second home as well. This edition of the Top Dog of the Week, proudly presented by K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare. The only place I would bring my dog for daily care is over to K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare with Lorraine, Chad, and the team. You will find them by going to 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse, right by BJ's Wholesale Club on the other side of the street. You can see K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare from the road when you're driving off of Erie Boulevard as well. So if you're coming off of Erie Boulevard onto Bridge Street and heading toward BJ's, you will see K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare. You'll also see it from the highway. If you're jumping on the highway or coming off of the highway, make sure you go and visit them today. Let them know that DT sent you. And when it comes to having a home away from home for the dogs that we love so dearly as members of our family, there's no one I trust more than Lorraine and the team that her and Chad have put together. So head over to K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare, 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse, and you can also go to K-9 kamp.com to learn more online. And you can call them at 315-437-7110. That's 315-437-7110, and let them know that DT sent you their way. My top dogs of the week got to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, we've talked about it throughout the show today. This is a team that was born out of the old Seattle Supersonics. And the Seattle Supersonics used to be really, really good. And they were going up against Michael Jordan and the crew and trying to win NBA titles, right? With Gary Payton and Detlef Schrempf and Sean Kemp and Sam Perkins and so on and so forth. And now we've seen a change. Right now it's different. You know, they went through this history where the Supersonics were so very good to a history where they lost their franchise. And they end up going to Oklahoma City and becoming the Thunder. And when they go to Oklahoma City and become the Thunder, we have now seen them be in a place where they had a lot of talent. In hindsight 2020, they had that team that we talked about here today, that team that featured Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant and James Harden, and they didn't keep that team together. And now you fast forward to this time and you look at what they've done, and you see that the Oklahoma City Thunder have built themselves into something truly special, something truly amazing. And it's taken time, patience, all the things we've been talking about on today's show. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they could have caved, right? The city of Seattle lost their franchise, and it could have just been a lost franchise. A franchise that didn't have any home. They could have totally folded. They didn't. When they went to Oklahoma City, they weren't going to a place close to Seattle. You're asking fans from Seattle, Washington, to travel to the middle of the country. And probably many of them didn't. And when the Thunder become the team that they became, they didn't know, they didn't necessarily know what they had, right? When they had Harden and Westbrook and Durant. And maybe those guys didn't know what their potential was going to be. Because if they got together years later in Oklahoma City, maybe they would have won multiple championships. Again, patience, faith. It didn't happen right away, which doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And that's what we see with Oklahoma City. It didn't happen right away. It did not happen. When they went from Seattle and became the Oklahoma City Thunder, they were the worst team in the NBA. They had to have faith and patience, and they couldn't have faith without patience. And now they're on the verge of potentially winning their first ever NBA title. So my top dogs of the week are the Oklahoma City Thunder, for their patience, for their faith, and when they made mistakes, they didn't give up. And when they traded this piece away and traded that piece away, they didn't give up. And with all the iterations of the team that they've had, they didn't give up. So to be where they are today did not come without adversity, didn't come without mistakes, didn't come without bad decisions. And they are a sign that you can navigate through something that's difficult. You can navigate through something that doesn't make sense. You can navigate through your own faults and your own mistakes to get to a place where you are at the top of the mountain. You don't get to the top of the mountain by being perfect. You get to the top of the mountain by understanding where you went wrong, adjusting your behavior, your habits, and the things that you've done and said to get better and grow through that adversity. And sometimes you cause yourself your own adversity. But if you don't grow through it and you don't come above it, you're not going to get to the top of the mountain. Nobody's gotten to the top of the mountain without any type of strife. And the Oklahoma City Thunder, self-inflicted wounds and wounds that they had no control over, have been with them for years. And if they crumbled under pressure, if they felt sorry for themselves, if they got selfish, if they got negative, if they got down on themselves, they wouldn't be where they are today. This is a franchise that was born out of a troubled franchise. And then they continue to be a troubled franchise. But look at where they are today. Every mistake, look at where they are. Every stumble, look at where they are. Every fall, look at where they are. So they're my top dogs of the week because the Oklahoma City Thunder franchise, which was potentially laughed off by people in history, is now considered to be arguably the best NBA franchise in the field right now. Dave Pasiak said that they were the best team going into the season. They've continued to be the best team of 30 NBA franchises. Those are big words. And Dave Pasiak don't say it unless he means it. And he knows a lot about basketball. So, my top dogs of the week, the Oklahoma City Thunder, for navigating through their own mistakes, navigating through things they couldn't control, to get to a place right now where they believed, no matter what anybody else did from the outside, from the inside looking out, Oklahoma City believed, and now they have an opportunity of making positive history and being on the top of the mountain for the first time. Top dog of the week, proudly presented by K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare, and thank you so much to the wonderful team there. Go and visit them once again, 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse, to bring your dog for your daily care of your animal that you love so much. With that being said, this finishes this week of Wake Up Call down in the great state of Florida. I call it Florida in Focus. And so our broadcast down in Florida will continue next week as well. Do Diz with Dan, our Disney coverage will continue, so make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and our new YouTube channel, which are all the same, at Do Diz with Dan. That's Do D-I-Z with Dan. So make sure you check those out today. Follow us and subscribe. It's all free. And, of course, Super Powered Pop is down here as well. Facebook, X, Instagram, and our YouTube channel, all at Super Powered Pop. Super, P-O-W-E-R-E-D, Pop. Make sure you check it out. And, of course, find us on Wake Up Call, Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. Thanks for being with us Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. We appreciate you for being with us. And once we go live, we hop into the archive, and we already have a bunch of those pieces out there, including my conversation with Papa Joe from yesterday. You could find it all by going to by going to Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And you can also ask Alexa or your Google Home device to play the latest episode of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and they will do that for you as well. Many thanks to the Brooklyn Pickle and Southern Pines. From New York to North Carolina, you will find the Brooklyn Pickle right by Pinehurst Golf Course, and you can get in touch with them today on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Let them know that Wake Up Call sent you. You could just say, DT sent me to come get a sandwich. I would suggest to get that Brooklyn Pickle or turkey. Those are my two favorites, but they have a million different things there. So make sure you go to the Brooklyn Pickle in Southern Pines on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. So make sure you go there and enjoy some fantastic food today. Thanks to Craig Kowadla, Brian Bruno, and the team for Brooklyn Pickle Southern Pines. Many thanks as well to Great Lakes Honda City, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, Servomation, Ma and Pa's, the snack capital of the world, Avicoli's, Mother's Cupboard, K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Pizza Man, Brian's Landing, and of course we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Dolphins every Wednesday during Dolphin Time here on Wake Up Call with student athletes, coaches, administration, alumni, and more. And you will find all of our content by going to youtube.com /Wake Up Call DT. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell. Find our Lemoyne playlist. The Dolphins are also with you on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com and Fins Up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bobcats in the Bobcat Buzz every single month with student athletes, coaches, administration, and alumni throughout the years telling their stories in a way that you'll only find here on wake-up call with all of the wonderful relationships we've been blessed to build by the grace of God. You will find all of that on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, find our BSC Syracuse playlist. The Bobcats are also on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com and go Bobcats. The Binghamton University Bearcats are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You'll find the Bearcats every Tuesday during Bearcat Time worldwide at 10 a.m. Eastern Time with student athletes, coaches, administration, and alumni. The Binghamton Bearcats baseball team, your America East champions, will be facing off against Georgia today at noon in the NCAA postseason. So a big-time shout-out and a God bless to the Bearcats versus the Bulldogs down in Athens, Georgia. And, of course, many thanks to our Bearcats that joined me this week, Evan Sullivan and Zach Kent of the baseball program. And, of course, you can find all of our content with the Bearcats by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our Binghamton Bearcats playlist. You'll also find the Bearcats on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to binghamtonbearcats.com and go Bearcats. With that being said, I want to thank Dave Paziak for being a part of the show. I would also like to thank Carvel DeWitt for the annoying moment of the week, Chick-fil-A Cicero for lead, learn, evolve, ad-lib, and deliver, and K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare for the top dog of the week, which is the Oklahoma City Thunder. From the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, I have some parks to go out and see for Do Diz with Dan and to just be a big kid and have fun. God bless you all. No stress. And what do I mean by that? Do I mean that there's never going to be stress in your life? No. I mean when you feel it, when you sense it, when you know it, do not feed it, right? You get what you feed. So feed calmness, patience, and faith, and not stress. And always do your best, because your best is going to be good enough for those that matter. And it's always going to be good for God, and it should be good enough for you, because your best is your best. So if you don't think it's your best, keep pushing yourself and do the absolute best you can, and be proud of that, okay? Be proud of that. You're not going to see results every second right in the moment, but they will come. And God is with you. Have a beautiful day. I'll talk with you soon. From the Great Lakes Honda City Studios down here in Florida, this is Wake Up Call.